Well, hello again, wonderful students, and this is lesson number 3, which is still working on comprehension strategies. We're going to move to the second strategy of the week, which is close reading. Now, you've learned to multi-draft reading, and what I didn't tell you in the previous lesson is when you read it for the second time and the third time, you're actually doing close reading. So you've already learned to integrate this strategy if you've done a second and third reading the way that I taught you in the last lesson. So congratulations! Close reading is when you analyze the text. It's a careful, purposeful reading of the text. You're rereading the text for a purpose, whether it be for understanding, to look for a theme, to look for a main idea, to find literary devices. It's purposeful second and third readings. So some tips for close reading are to break down long sentences into parts. Maybe you find the subject and the verbs, for example. You're going to reread. You're going to look for some context clues. Examples I have are ideas that are restated. For example, Mrs. D, our teacher, was excited about the year. Merely from that sentence, you can infer that Mrs. D is the teacher. And I love teaching. You also want to look for contrasts of ideas. So if it says integrity, unlike villainy, is a good characteristic to have, you know that integrity is a good thing and villainy is a bad thing merely by the flow of that sentence and the opposite that it presented there. So look for your context clues and contrast of ideas and topics. You can also identify literary devices. This is one of my favorite things to do as a literature teacher. That'll help support your meaning. For example, on the first day of school, Susan stood in the first grade lunch line, a giraffe amongst the others. This metaphor indicates that the character is taller than the other first graders. So literary devices which are purposefully used by the author are there to indicate and help your comprehension. And finally, you can paraphrase. If you read a text and you cannot restate what's going on in your own words, you're going to need to check your understanding and perhaps reread again. If you understand what's going on, then by all means move along. So what I have for you next is a video that I'd like you to view and hopefully learn more about close reading, which you are going to be masters at. Enjoy.
I remember being 7 or 8 years old and going through book after book after book of R.L. Stine's Goosebumps. I used to dive right into those books and be attached to the hip to the main character and had to know exactly what was about to happen next. I get excited about reading, but I know that's not the experience for everybody. So in the later years of my education, having to read difficult articles, I already brought to the table a great set of skills. And doing close reading was just an extension of those skills. So how do you teach students that may or may not like to read to be close readers? Well, this video is designed to help. First, let's talk about what close reading is. Close reading is actually just figuring out what the text is saying. High-quality text doesn't give up its meaning easily and requires a little bit of work to figure out what it's trying to say. That work is divided up in numerous readings. The first time you read a challenging text, you just want to go for the bare minimum. During this reading, a close reader is only looking for reading comprehension. After this reading, students should be able to answer basic questions like what happened in the story, or what was the article about, what are some key points, what are some key details. During the first reading, I tell my students to read the text slowly and just get a gist of what the text is about. Also, while they read, I expect them to circle words that they don't know and words that they find interesting. After that first reading, this is where we're really starting to get into close reading. In the second reading, students should keep an eye out for language, narrative, syntax, and context. The author's language, or diction, is very important to uncovering deeper meaning. While reading, what emotions do the author's words make you feel? Are there any words the author repeated or emphasized? Why do you think the author chose those specific words? The second thing to pay attention to is who is telling the story. If you're reading a technical journal, is it an expert in the field? If you're reading a novel, is there a narrator, or is it from the point of view of the main character? Next, pay attention to syntax. Syntax means the order of the words. Do the words start out happy and then change to sad, or vice versa? And finally, context is important. Are you reading a primary source historical document? Chances are that author has a bias. Books don't exist outside of time and space, so chances are what's going on in the author's life is impacting his or her work. Close reading is an intense analysis of a text to figure out what a text says, how it says it, and what it means. Those big picture questions can only be answered by reading the text multiple times and coming up with answers for questions about language, about narrative, about context, and about syntax. Teachers often ask for close reading.
So I hope you guys, after that video and after my explanation, have a better understanding of close reading and you're able to apply this in all of your other classes, not just a reading class, but take these reading strategies and apply them to all of your classes to become a better reader and make sure that you're interacting meaningfully with your text. Have a great day.